Hi, this is Cherie Glover bringing you a new video on my manifestation and meditation journey. So, I recently uploaded a video about my self-love altar. I hope you found that inspiring and that you take some action to really create a space where you can honor yourself and remember who you are. And I'm super excited to bring you this video today because it was sitting at my self-love altar. It's how I got to the root of an issue I was dealing with using meditation. So let me just jump in. So back in February, I had reached out to my homeowners association community manager to get an account detail of all of my dues I've paid for my HOA association. And all I had was her email address, so I sent her an email, and it took a few days for her to get back to me. So by February 23rd, she did, and so I reached out to the contact person in the billing department that she referred me to, who could actually produce this report. So I spoke to her, I sent her an email letting her know what I wanted, and then I waited. So on February the 27th, I hadn't received this report, so I reached out to her again to ask what was the status of the report. And she told me, well, I never got your email. So I said, okay, no worries. I emailed her again, and she said, once I get the email, I'll call you back and confirm I received it. So about 20 minutes later, she gives me a call back and says, I got your email. This report usually takes 2 to 3 days. You'll get an email directly from the person who actually does it, and then you'll be all set. I said, great, no worries. All right, so this is I talked to her on the 27th. So on March the 1st, which is Friday, I haven't heard anything from her. I haven't gotten an email from anybody in her department. So now we're approaching the weekend. So Monday, March the 4th, I call her all day, never get a response to an email. She never calls me back. So Tuesday, which is now March 5th, I finally make contact with her and I ask again, what is the status of the report? And she's like, it looks like we're working on it. And I say, okay, so about when do you think it'll be done? So she says, give me a call back on Friday, which would have been March the 8th. And then today was Tuesday when I was speaking to her. So I said, okay, all right, seems like a long time to do this, but I'm gonna wait and give you a call on Friday. So Wednesday comes around and Thursday comes around, and something tells me you need to hedge your bets and give her a call to see and check on the status of that report. So I reach out to her, I speak to her, and she's like, let me go check on it. So Friday, which is the day she asked me to call, and I call her every 15 minutes and she never picks up her phone once. I even call the receptionist to make certain she's in, and the receptionist confirmed she's in for the day, and she transferred that call over to her and she still doesn't pick up. So I'm thinking, well, maybe she's screening her call. So I call her from my Google Voice number and she still does not pick up. So now we're approached another weekend and I just say, okay, all right. I'm frustrated at this point and really irritated because it really shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 days to get this report generated. So when Monday rolls around, I say, okay, I'm not going to call her because Mondays are typically really busy. People are in meetings. So let me just give her some space and then I'll call her on Tuesday. So Tuesday, as I was getting ready for the day, getting dressed, standing in front of my mirror, I started to review the situation that I'm in of asking for this report for almost 3 weeks. And then it reminded me of something that happened to me in January. So in January, I had to file a claim with my insurance company. I spoke to the rep. They promised me, they'd get back to me in a certain time frame and get the claim settled. So that time frame elapsed, and then I didn't have any information or any communication. So I called them back. And then at that call, I was given new information and a new time frame. So I let that time frame elapse and still no word from them. And I call back for a third time and I get new information and a new time frame. At this point, I request from the rep on the phone that I want this escalated because I've been getting new information, new time frames every time I call, and this should have been given to me on the first call that I made. So she was really great. She submitted the escalation report request to the department, but I would still have to wait. So after about 2.5 weeks of going back and forth, my claim was finally settled. Now, when I think over my life, this dynamic happens to me over and over again. Whereas when I make a request, it is not acted upon with immediacy or with urgency. It's almost as if the universe is conspiring against me. Now, I've done enough transformational work to know that there's no point in blaming anybody else because the problem is over here with me and I need to be responsible for how I'm showing up in the world. So, this is where meditation comes in. This question of why is it that when I make a request, it is not acted upon with immediacy or urgency is what I took to my meditation. So I sat down before my altar. I had my candles lit. I had my crystals out. I put on my little shawl over my head and created this sacred space where I could check in with myself. And it was in that moment I identified the energetic that I had been bringing to the situation, and it was desperation. To put it more accurately, I was begging. So what had happened was my back was up against the wall. I needed this report because I had to have it by a deadline. And the only tool I had in my tool bag was to beg and plead. And you know what? Because I was in desperation, that's what I was broadcasting out to the universe. And I simply found someone who was an energetic match to the energy that I was vibrating. I found in both situations with the HOA and with the insurance company someone who was indifferent and apathetic to my request. I simply broadcast and found someone who was an energetic match. As I continued to look inward as I sat before my altar, I asked the various parts of my being, why is it that when I ask a question or make a request, it's not being acted upon with immediacy or urgency? So I asked my mind, I said, mind, why is it that my requests aren't being acted upon with immediacy and urgency? And I just sat still and leaned into stillness and listened to the inner voice that whispered to me, it's because you don't believe in yourself. Then I asked my emotions, emotions, why are my requests not being acted upon with immediacy and urgency? And again, I just sat still and listened to the inner voice in my head, and it said, because you bring too many emotions to situations. Then I asked my body, I said, body, why is it that my requests are not being acted upon with immediacy and urgency? And it said, because you are afraid of yourself and your power to change the world. Now, at this point, I was taken back, partly because I knew it was true. I've always been afraid of my power. I was afraid it might rub someone the wrong way, so I've purposely played small so other people could feel comfortable around me. Then I asked my mind again. I said, mind, how can I overcome the fear of my power? And it said to me, spend time with yourself daily. Basically, get to know yourself so you're not afraid of yourself. And it also said, you need to be more strategic with your request. It was at that point I got up from my meditation and I began to rethink how I had arrived at this situation of requesting this report, and a new idea fell in my head. And it was, you reached out to the community manager and she referred you someone in the billing department. Why don't you go back to the community manager, let her know that you've been requesting this report for weeks, you've not been successful in getting the report, and to see if she can intervene on your behalf. So I sat down at my computer, I sent her an email outlining what had happened, and within an hour she had responded. and said, I've reached out to my contact. As soon as I get an update, I will let you know. Now, this was around noon on Tuesday, March the 12th. Do you know by around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that report was in my inbox, and I had been asking for it for 3 weeks. When I was in the desperation energetic, I was not in my power. I was being victimized. The answer was there for me all along, but I didn't realize it because I was frustrated and carried off by my emotions. The realization came about when I sat still and looked inward, which is where all the answers lie. So let me break it down to you step by step so you can look into your own life. Step 1. Are you dealing with a repetitive dynamic? If so, stop the action you've been doing immediately. Take the opportunity to connect the dots with each situation. 2. Examine the energy you bring to the situation. Is it frustration, fear, blaming, or beating up on yourself? Any emotion that has you not operating in your power. 3. Check in with yourself. Lean into stillness. Trust yourself and listen to what is being communicated to you from the various parts of your being to receive clarity. This step does take time, so be patient with yourself. Take some deep breaths and to release your emotions and to connect with your body. 4. Shift your energy. Remember, the world responds to the energy you are broadcasting. Stand in your power. It signals to the universe you are ready to operate from your higher self. 5. With your newfound clarity, take a new action. The answer has been there all along, and you haven't noticed it because you've been caught up in your emotions. 6. Take note of how the world responds to you because what you are now broadcasting and calling into yourself. 7. Share this video with whomever needs to hear this message.